Now will we see the magic?
All right, where's Murray? Okay, who is it?
This is Jesus, kid.
Know then that it is the year 10,191.
Yes, we are bored. We're all bored now.
Hi, good night.
Good night.
Hello, and welcome to Mary versus the Movies with your host, Mary Jones.
And Dennis Ling.
Oh my God. You're still doing that, huh?
Yeah.
And we're recording this actually on Mischief Night. We're about to watch a movie that I didn't put in Halloween month because I don't think it quite fits in Halloween month. Because I don't know if it's a horror movie. Well, no. Okay, so the movie, this is episode 32.
Yep.
And we're watching the movie Angel Heart. Which, no, see, that's the thing. It's, oh my God, you're gonna be making that noise when we do like planes, trains, and automobiles, aren't you?
Ooh.
Ooh, transportation. It's a notorious film. When I briefly pulled up IMDb this afternoon to see like how long is this movie, because I like to figure out how long a movie is before we watch it, just because I want to schedule when we're going to sit down and watch it. I saw that it's rated X. So this will not be the first rated X film that I've seen. Wait a minute. Let me explain. Yes, but also I'm including Midnight Cowboy. I mean, I don't want to go off into a whole thing right now, although it might become relevant after we watch the movie. I don't know. Really, I'm just bringing this up because I happened to look it up real quick on IMDb. Like, oh wow, I'm gonna watch an X-rated movie for this podcast. But now I'm wondering, like, well, is it actually X-rated, or was this X before they had NC-17? Because I don't remember NC-17 being a thing until around 1990. So when I was a kid, now keep in mind, 1990, I'm like 11 years old. I was obsessed with movies. I mean, basically since I was born. I was raised on movies. I love film. I would read film reviews in the newspaper every Friday. I watched Siskel and Ebert. I would be told about films that, like, maybe I've never seen them. Like, I've never seen Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down, but I know it exists. And I'm pretty sure that had an NC-17. And that was like an early NC-17 film. So I was, I've always been aware that there are these movies that are not just movies that are people having sex, but actually are films that have erotic content in them. Like there is a difference. There is a line, right? But anyway, NC-17 replaced the X. So this movie is, I think, 87, and I don't think they had NC-17 ratings at that time.
Right.
Having given this whole preamble, does this movie have a lot of sex in it? I don't know, because here's the thing. I know this is the movie that got Lisa Bonet kicked off of the Cosby Show.
Yeah, she brought shame to the Cosby Show.
Yeah, she's the one. Yeah, she was the problem there. Yeah. Oh my God.
She really should be ashamed.
Here's what I know about this movie. And here's what I think happens in this movie. So I know that this is a movie that stars Lisa Bonet and Mickey Rourke. I don't know a lot about Mickey Rourke. In fact, I don't know that I've seen anything that he's been in other than what, Iron Man 2? So I never saw The Wrestler. And
Pope of Greenwich Village?
I've never seen The Pope of Greenwich Village, which is definitely going on our list, right? That's the 80s.
Yeah. So 9.5 weeks, is that?
I've never seen 9.5 Weeks.
Yeah.
I guess that'll go on our list.
I'm trying to think of what else. I feel like he's in one of those S.E. Hinton books.
Well, I saw The Outsiders. I don't think he's in The Outsiders.
Rumblefish?
I didn't see Rumblefish.
I feel like he might be in that. Maybe. I don't know.
So I don't really like Mickey Rourke is not really an entity to me. Again, Iron Man 2, which is a movie I barely remember.
Mickey Rourke had the whip that snapped the car in half.
But so now you know.
So you don't know anyone else in this film.
Okay, now so here's where I get confused. So I think this is a movie about the devil, right?
Okay.
Okay, so I think this is a movie about the devil, but I don't remember if the devil is Is it Robert De Niro or is it Al Pacino? And do I have this movie confused with The Devil's Advocate?
Do you want to know?
No.
Okay.
Don't tell me anything.
Yeah.
So, okay, like I have this vague idea that this is a movie that has something to do with the devil. I'm not sure who plays the devil, but it's one of those two guys who was in Godfather Part 2. And that's kind of how I think of it. Were they in Godfather Part 2? Yes. Did they play the devil? Yes. Which one is it?
What kind of film do you think it is?
All I know is, okay, it's about the devil and it was rated X, so it's got sex in it, right? But it's definitely a mainstream movie because it's got like regular actors in it, right?
Yeah.
So like, what kind of movie is this? I don't know. It's like maybe a horror movie, I don't know.
Do you know who directed it?
Not a clue.
Okay.
Who directed it?
Alan Parker, who did The Wall?
I've never seen The Wall.
Okay.
Do I want to see The Wall?
No.
Shall we go watch this movie that I don't really understand even before we start?
Girl of my dreams, I love you. Honest, I do. You are so sweet.
It's a well-made film.
Yep.
And it has some good performances.
Oh, it looks like Miller's Crossing or Barton Fink.
Yeah, I mean it has. I mean, I'm not sure who the cinematographer is, but it looks good.
I think because it's a period piece too, it has like this kind of World War II color thing.
Well, yeah.
Scheme.
Plus, I mean, it is set after World War II. It's set in the 50s.
Yep.
With flashbacks to 1943. So it's a well-made film. It might be kind of racist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the second British director making a film about America
Yeah.
that we've seen. The first one being Honky Tonk Freeway.
Right.
So this one, it definitely has like African Americans, but they're all kind of backwards in this film. In a way.
Yeah, that's the thing. Every character in this film who is black is painted as a devil worshiper or somebody being suckered in by devil worshippers. And that doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, it turns out everybody in the movie is.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're not in terms of the text itself singled out per se, but it does not have what we'll call a generous view of what is usually termed like the African diaspora religious movements, i.e. the various forms of syncretic religion blending traditional African religion with usually Christianity. So voodoo, Santeria, things like that.
Yeah, it's basically saying, oh, voodoo, that's devil worship.
Which isn't correct. It's actually a very complicated belief system, and as I said, it's syncretic, which means it blends a couple of different belief systems together because of the nature of Africans being enslaved and brought to the Western Hemisphere. But this is going for straight up Southern Gothic, voodoo, New Orleans, Satan. So
do you want to get into the plot of this? Or?
Well, I do think it's worth talking about the plot a little bit, except here's the thing. It's a bit convoluted.
Yeah.
So we will talk about the plot, but if it doesn't seem to make any sense, that's not our fault.
Now the movie, it's a noir horror film, basically.
Yeah, it is. It is,
which
exactly.
is a very rare mix. And probably you won't see much of it again because this movie kind of tanked. But
yeah, it did not do well at all, which is kind of surprising because, again, it's not a poorly made film. Although as I guess we would have brought up in the intro, it was rated X initially, and they had to cut about 10 seconds worth of film in order to bring it down to an R. And it's a hard R, not just because of language, but yeah, there's a very prominent sex scene. Although I'll tell you what, it is not a sexy scene.
No.
At all. So it's 1955, and the private investigator, Harry Angel, has been contacted by a Mr. Cypher to do a missing persons case.
Is that Louis Cypher?
It is Louis Cypher. Oh, God.
Like Lou Cypher? Huh. Who could he be?
I mean, at least the film eventually does sort of hang a lampshade on the fact that this is a terrible pun.
Yeah.
And it says, even your name is dime store joke, and it is. So he's contacted by Mr. Cipher on a missing persons case, a guy named Johnny Famous, who was a singer back in the 30s and 40s, who has been missing since 1943, and Mr. Cipher wants him found because Johnny Famous owes Mr. Cipher a debt. Harry spends the film trying to track down where this guy has gone to. A lot of the film is going and seeing what happened to this guy. So he went missing since 1943 because he had been drafted into the war and was wounded and sent to a hospital, had amnesia, and he disappeared after that. They say he was taken to Times Square on New Year's Eve, and that was the last anyone saw of him. The film starts off in New York, and he's trying to find out anybody in Brooklyn who has connections to this guy, and not just Brooklyn, also Harlem.
Yeah.
So and I brought up Brooklyn just because there's a whole scene set at Coney Island, which is funny because it looks like Coney Island now. It's like they have the big Wonder Wheel, and I'm just like, hey man, we were just there. But yeah, there are scenes set in Harlem. In fact, when Cypher wants to meet up with Harry Angel, they do it up at a church in Harlem. And again, this is where the uncomfortable racial elements of this film start, because you have this preacher in a church in Harlem, and the first time you meet him, it's basically just him saying, give me your money. If you want, almost like a prosperity gospel thing. If you believe in me, you're going to give me your money. And eventually, in a later scene, we find out that this preacher has a voodoo altar in a closet upstairs in the church, and there's all sorts of visually creepy things going on where there's a room that has blood splattered in it and things like that that's being cleaned up. And if the fact that this is where Mr. Cipher wants to meet clues you in that, oh, these people are not Christians as we would think. Although, to be fair, there is a scene later, I guess in New Orleans, where Harry and Cipher meet up at a Catholic church. Cipher has no problem being in a Catholic church, so I don't think the film has a particularly high opinion of religion in general. Although it treats religion as real, which is interesting. Maybe it's a very Protestant film. That's what that actually kind of made me think, like, is this movie made by Protestants? Specifically waspy Protestants. Because again, it's made by an Englishman. African-American spirituality is suspect, but so is the Catholic Church, apparently.
To go back a bit, the film starts with a body of a woman who's been murdered, and she has nothing to do with anything.
Man, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, like it's like snow, there's cats and stuff, and then you see this dead woman, and it's like, oh, I guess this is the start of the plot. We never find anything out about that woman.
I completely forgot about that.
Like, I guess it's like, oh, it's noir.
Yeah.
Just bad things happen.
Did not remember that at all with her.
Before this, there is this apparent suicide.
Oh, that's right, because he goes up to the hospital where the guy was being held, and he finds the doctor who had been treating him. The doctor is this old morphine addict now, and as far as we know, commits suicide. That he locks the addict in the bedroom so that he'll tell him whatever he wants when he gets back.
Yeah.
And when he comes back, the doctor has shot himself. After coming to a dead end in New York, except being told that he had this lady friend down in New Orleans that was the last person to see him, this Margaret, he decides to go down to New Orleans to kind of follow up on that. She is a wealthy socialite who is into the occult and does, tarot readings and astrology and all that stuff. All things which, frankly, are pretty mainstream now. So it's kind of funny to be watching this and seeing this as like a sign that she is a devil worshiper. It's just like, oh, the 80s kind of have a different view of this, don't they? In the 2020s, it's like, I have like 15 tarot decks. I don't know anybody who doesn't know some sort of astrology. Whether you believe it or not, it's kind of everywhere. So I just find it interesting that in this movie, this is immediately why she's creepy. Whereas I look at her apartment and it's gorgeous. It's all this kind of like, because it's set in the 50s, but all the furniture is very kind of late 19th century Southern Gothic sort of New Orleans, gaudy. I don't know. I kind of Art Nouveau sort of look of some of the stuff. I love it. I would love to live in her apartment. He's having dealings with her, but he's not really getting anywhere. She's not being very helpful. What sets him off on the road to finding Lisa Bonet's character? Do you remember?
When Johnny So he finds out that he's taken down to New Orleans by this guy and a woman.
Right, that's Mark.
I thought the woman that took him down was this Proudfoot.
Oh, well, see...
Or she was somehow involved as well.
This movie is convoluted.
Yeah.
It's very confusing who is who and who's doing what. But you're right. I'm not entirely sure if maybe it was this Proudfoot woman who was with Margaret's father who gives who shows up with the fake name of Edward Kelly. Edward Kelly was a 17th century magician, the partner of John Dee. And the thing is, we're not going to try to explain this right now because it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
But so he goes to her grave and finds
he finds
Lisa Bonet.
Yeah,
putting like food and stuff there, like an offering.
So Lisa Bonet plays Epiphany Proudfoot, the daughter of Evangeline.
That's right. Yeah.
Who is named for the poem. Epiphany is only 17 years old. Already, it's kind of creepy because the film heavily sexualizes her, and she's supposed to be a teenager. Ugh. The rest of the film is him trying to track down leads and figuring out, where this guy is and
but also flirting with her,
trying to talk to all these musicians who had worked with Johnny back up in New York. And so you have these scenes of him going to bars in New Orleans and watching these blues players, and he starts trying to talk to this guy who was the guitarist for Johnny, and that guy ends up dead, of course.
Everyone he talks to ends up dead. There's a journalist woman who he talks to. There's cut footage of her dead somewhere.
Oh, I didn't see that.
I just read it somewhere.
Oh, okay.
But it's not in the film, but apparently the idea is that everyone that he talked to is eventually killed somehow.
Jeez. So, yeah, the guitar player ends up dead. Margaret, the socialite, ends up dead. I mean, somebody cuts her heart out. Her he goes to confront her father and try to figure out what's going on, and he ends up dead. So he goes and actually talks to Margaret's father at one point to try to figure out, what's been going on. And
is this the Ed Kelly?
This is the Ed Kelly. I mean, that's not actually the guy's name, but he's the one who sprung Johnny from the asylum and set him off to Times Square. Well, then at first, this guy is kind of saying, well, I was helping out my daughter was in love with him, blah, blah, blah. And eventually he lets loose that, well, I had to let him out of, his situation because this guy is the most amazing wizard I've ever seen. He could conjure up Satan right in front of my own eyes. And it turns out this guy is a Satanist. Yeah. Now, to keep in mind, the guy, Margaret's father is white, Margaret is white, so this is now white Satanists going on. Yeah. So it's not just
and they're like gung-ho Rosemary's Baby type Satanists now.
Oh, absolutely. They are like the hardcore. This is actually kind of interesting because now we've left anything that is supposed to look like voodoo into just straight up old school Satanism. It made for good Halloween viewing, I will say that. Then he ends up dead in a giant cauldron of gumbo.
But he's the one that says that Johnny Favorite sold his soul to the devil to become famous. He actually found a loophole to get out of owing his soul to the devil, and that was to find some innocent and eat that guy's heart, which they did in 1943. And they found a soldier in 1943. It's set up like they keep showing flashbacks to it, and they show I think they show a soldier kissing a nurse, and it's like, this looks like VJ Day.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm like, you're just using the pictures you have from one event to use for this other event.
Yeah, that was
like this
very
big
weird.
party, and they keep showing this soldier kissing this nurse. I'm like, we know this picture, and it's not from 1943.
Not at all. This is when we're finally starting to get an idea of what exactly is going on. And by now we've figured out that, Mr. Cypher is the devil. And the idea is that he wants to collect on Johnny's soul because he's been owed the soul. And the fact we've been getting these flashbacks, but we're getting them through Harry's eyes. So you figure out that Harry is Johnny.
Right.
That becomes clear. Mm-hmm. It doesn't become clear to Harry, though, until after he's gone and slept with Epiphany, who we already know is Johnny's daughter. In other words, he has sex with his own daughter.
Yeah.
And that is the 10 seconds that are usually cut out. Not the entire scene, but there's a specific couple of shots of actual hip thrusting that is, I guess it's graphic. It's,
But
is
there's
what it
also
is.
blood pouring on them while this is happening.
Exactly. It's also like in a very unsexy setting.
Yeah.
He has this apartment that always leaks. The water starts just coming down the sides of the room, and it's just filling up with water and water and water, and then the water just starts filling with blood, and so now they're basically having sex with all this blood falling on them. It's kind of gross.
Yeah.
But by now we also know that, hey, by the way, dude, you're in an old boy situation.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know it, but we know it. So by now you kind of get the idea that, oh, he's been Johnny this whole time, but he doesn't realize he's Johnny. He has some sort of amnesia or whatever, which I suppose is part of the condition of trying to outwit the devil, is that he doesn't know who he is.
At some point they say that Johnny, he took the soul from
This
Harry Angel.
Right.
But then was drafted in the war immediately after, and then got PTSD or something.
Lucifer finally catches up with him and says, yeah, you are this guy and your soul is mine. And of course he's like, no, this ain't me. Then we quick go through every murder that we've seen in the movie. And then now they show us Harry actually committing every murder.
Yeah.
So that we see that he actually shot the doctor, that he cut open Margaret, that he threw Margaret's dad into the giant cauldron of gumbo.
Though he was influenced by Satan.
Well, yeah, he's influenced by Satan because he's a Satanist. Don't be trying to take him off the hook here.
I'm just saying,
No, you can't say nothing here. He's the bad guy. He's been the villain the whole time. And then we find that he's killed Epiphany, which was a scene we didn't see before. Because what happens is he runs back to the hotel and we see her naked in the bed, but with blood all around her abdomen. And the idea is that he stuck a gun up her and blew her away. The cops are there at the apartment to arrest him, having found the body. They say, you're going to burn for this. And he's like, yep. Yeah. At which point, one of the detectives walks into his apartment holding Epiphany's son. And he's got the devil's eyes, and he reaches out at him. And then next thing you know, the rest of the movie is just Harry going down.
This is the cheesiest effect.
It looks bad.
It's so bad.
It's basically like the eyes effect at the end of the Thriller video,
but worse.
But it looks
Even
worse.
It looks like they're taped on.
Which is a shame because the rest of the film looks really good.
Yeah.
But the thing with the eyes looks terrible.
Yeah, it's so bad. I mean, they do the same thing to
Lucifer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At one point.
That doesn't look good either.
No, but at least that was quick. So sometimes when you do a bad effect quick, it's almost scarier.
Sure.
If you do it quick enough.
Yeah, I mean it's like when you see the demon face in The Exorcist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But when this kid, it kind of lingers on and it's really dumb looking, and it's oh god, that's eek.
Yeah. But yeah, then that's the film. Harry realizes he's Johnny and he's done all these things and he goes to hell. There's a lot to like or find interesting about the movie, but I'm really uncomfortable with the way that the voodoo religion is depicted, as we discussed. That really kind of bothers me. Now, I don't see a whole lot of writing on the movie because, we quick looked up the movie after we watched it, and I didn't see a whole lot talking too much about that, and I don't know if that's just a detriment on the part of film critics 35 years ago, or if maybe I'm, taking the wrong track because everybody in the movie turns out to be a Satanist. So I don't know. We tried to give you an outline of the plot, and there's some stuff we left out because it's just a confusing plot. But as Dennis said, it's noir. And it's a good noir. It actually is real. It does a really good job of capturing that kind of a feel. Harry is played by Mickey Rourke. I gotta say, he's good in this. Yeah,
he's kind of like a young Robert De Niro, in a way.
Okay.
A little bit. It seems like that's what he was gunning for at the time.
Sure.
That was, that kind of cocky young.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Well, he's that, but he's also got a bit of. He's definitely doing a bit of a Philip Marlowe.
Yeah.
And it's sitting somewhere between Bogart and Gould in his Marlowe. It's very much that kind of shambly mumbly, but not entirely. Like he can kind of turn off the mumbly a bit.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting performance, and it's a very good performance.
But he's also trying to be sexy at the same time, which weird kind of James Deany sexiness that he's trying for.
Yeah, but within the context of the film, it's off-putting.
Like there's a lot of like repeated imagery. Like
Yeah.
So before every murder, there's always a shot of a fan stopping somewhere, and I think that's from like the actual heart-eating ceremony that they keep kind of sort of flashbacking to. They never really show it of whatever happened in 1943 where they
they
ate
lured
this
kid's
heart.
I mean, it does a good job in marrying horror with that kind of the weird logic of a film noir. Because like if you've ever watched or read any noir, they don't always make sense. There's red herrings. Like go and watch or try to read The Big Sleep, and it can be really hard to follow. There's a lot of reading Chandler that's just following a vibe. Mm-hmm. And it's a vibe I love. I really enjoy it, but sometimes you sit there and you try to figure out what's going on. You just kind of shake your head like, wait, how did that work? In fact, there is a story famously when they were writing the screenplay for The Big Sleep, the studio went back to Chandler and said, yo, wait, why is this guy wait, what happened here? And I just remember reading, like, essentially there was a pause, and he said, yeah, I'm not sure what I was thinking.
Yeah. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense. Because, again, it's very much about the vibe and not so much, it's not a crafted plot.
So, for one thing, like, they say that this Johnny... famous
favorite.
Oh, man,
I'm never going to get this right.
They said that like he was put in this hospital and he had his face changed,
right,
or something. But then like he was taken by this woman and this guy and to Times Square, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard to tell when the face change happened or whatever. Like because if they were there when his face was changed, they would recognize him. They're like, why is I don't know. I don't understand what's going on in this movie.
No. And we're going to try to stop figuring that out.
So my feeling about the movie is that it's like the third policeman.
Do you want to explain what the third policeman is?
Oh, also a occurrence at Owl Creek or something. So,
yeah, definitely the occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge.
Yeah.
The Third Policeman is a novel by Flann O'Brien, who was an Irish writer back in the middle of the 20th century. He's a great writer. He wrote that. He wrote Enville Vach, the Poor Mouth. He wrote At Swim Two Birds. He was a journal. He wrote as a columnist under the name of Miles Nagoplin. Yeah, Flann O'Brien, great writer, great novelist. Check him out. Considered one of the greatest of the Irish writers of the 20th century. Well, The Third Policeman is a very strange novel of
very
his
strange
that we've both read.
Yeah.
So go ahead and explain, because you love this book and I love the book.
Explain.
But yeah,
Yeah, sure.
sure.
So this guy, I guess he robbed something and he robbed like a store or something and killed somebody.
Well, no, okay. The plot of The Third Policeman is he and his partner are thieves,
Right.
and they know that an old man in the village has a bunch of like gold hidden in his house, and so they're going to rob the house. And when they go into the house, they know that they accidentally confront the guy and they're going to kill him.
Actually, I'm not remembering it now.
Oh, you're not remembering it? Okay, well, so what happens is, and we found out towards the end of the book, so spoiler alert, you might not want to hear this part. Once they got into the house, what actually happened was a bomb went off and killed both of them, and then the rest of the book is them in hell and not realizing it.
Yeah.
So
But
once they go
they're-
into the house,
they're-
very weird things start to happen.
Like they're reliving the event over and over again.
Yeah.
And along the way, they meet these policemen who are like a certain percentage bicycle.
Yeah.
And
It's a surrealist novel.
yeah, and he has like this slimy demon in him or something that leaves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's a whole
just-
it's a very strange book.
But the whole idea is that it just builds up to this point where it just repeats.
Yeah.
And you realize that, oh, this is his hell. He's just living this over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what this movie is that like he's dead the whole time and he's just reliving his sins, and he's this amnesia that Johnny Famous has is him having to relive this, and like that's his punishment in hell.
I do like that interpretation, because otherwise, why doesn't Lucifer just collect the soul when he's right in front of him, right?
Right.
Like there's no real reason to do so, except because he wants to torture the guy.
Yeah. And I feel like this whole thing is just a torture rather than anything else.
So he's probably been dead the whole film, and that we're just seeing this guy in hell.
Mm-hmm.
I like that interpretation. That actually kind of makes sense.
All the things that don't make sense about it, suddenly you're like, oh well,
that's just hell logic.
Yeah.
A couple of things about the film. One, I was reading that the devil is played by De Niro, so I was right about that. One thing I read that I liked was that De Niro modeled his performance, which is a very kind of quiet and mannered performance, after Martin Scorsese.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. And watching if you go and watch it, knowing that, you go, oh yeah, I've definitely seen, like, when he's not in his like more animated moments, you know, it's like the quiet Scorsese the whole time. So I like his performance as the devil because it's very quiet and it's not, he never really goes off. And Lisa Bonet is not in a lot of the movie.
No.
I mean, her performance.
I think part of the reason why people wanted to see the movie was because of her.
Yeah.
Like, because she got kicked off the show because of it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that was part of what disappointed people or something, was that
she's not in it a lot.
And it's just creepy, you know, it's this horrible sex scene when she is.
It is very creepy.
Yeah.
And the only other kind of big moment she has is we see Harry sneak up on a voodoo ritual in the woods. And, you know, I mean, it's dancing, and it's she slaughters a chicken, is covered in its blood, and it's like, you know, orgiastic in like the fullest like old Greek sense of, you know, this is like ecstatic rites and all that. I don't know, man. Getting sprinkled with blood, not sexy to me. Just it's not my thing.
All right. Whatever. Each his own.
So yeah, Angel Heart, it's an interesting movie. I mean, you know, it's kind of like the same era as like Jacob's Ladder. It's a bit like Jacob's Ladder, I guess. Yeah. But it's well done. But yeah, I don't know how I feel about its racial overtones. I don't know, man. I'm not comfortable with it.
Like as like a devil movie, I feel like it's better than Devil's Advocate.
Oh yeah, man, totally. But it's
like,
a more subtle film.
Yeah. Like
the performances are better. It's better directed than The Devil's Advocate. Like The Devil's Advocate, you know, it's fun, but this has some art to it. Yeah. It does have some art to it. It's not a bad movie.
And this feels evil, where that did not. Like The Exorcist felt evil.
Yeah.
And this feels evil. But
yes.
The Devil's Advocate just feels like, I don't know,
gaudy.
Yeah.
It's more gaudy than evil.
Mm-hmm.
No, this movie does have a good evil vibe in the way, as you said, The Exorcist or Rosemary's Baby. It definitely pairs with those kinds of films.
I read a lot of reviews that said, like, well, Harry Angel was a good guy and Johnny Famous was a bad guy.
They're the same guy.
And it's the same guy. And it's like, I don't know where you're getting that he's a good guy.
No, he never comes across as heroic in the movie.
No.
Which, you know, it works for a noir. You know, the detective isn't always actually a good guy.
I mean, he's charismatic in his way, I guess, but
he's not heroic.
They're just projecting, you know, like they're projecting like Bogart on this character when, you know, it's, you know, there's no heart of gold here.
I was gonna say, yeah, this is. Yeah. Yeah, if it's Bogart in A Lonely Place.
Yeah.
You know.
Or Treasure of Sierra Madre.
Right. Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he sweats about as much as Bogart did in that movie. There's a lot of sweating in this movie.
It's a very sweaty movie, especially once they get down to New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
I will say, the scenes up in New York, because it's set in like January, it's very slushy, and it feels very slushy and cold. It's a very cold. I mean, this is almost like inside Llewyn Davis cold.
Yeah.
It's not Fargo cold, but it's definitely Inside Llewyn Davis cold. It's like that horrible slushy cold.
It just feels like the especially the first part of the movie feels very Coen Brothers.
Yeah, it's funny how I do know what you mean by that. I'm not exactly sure how to quantify it, but you can see how it has a little bit of that feel. Yeah. This is before Miller's Crossing, actually.
Yeah.
By at least a year, I think. Again, it's a good film. I don't know how I feel about the racial parts of it, but if you want like a movie that kind of feels evil, this is a good one.
Yep.
So that was Angel Heart from 1987, directed by Alan Parker and starring Mickey Rourke and, I mean, kind of starring Robert De Niro and Lisa Bonet, but they're not in it a whole lot.
Yeah.
So you can follow us on social media. We are Mary VS Movies on Twitter. We are maryvsmovies@gmail.com for any questions, comments, complaints, or suggestions. We are available on Apple, iTunes, podcasts, whatever the system is called now. I don't know, man. They changed that. Bring back iTunes, even though that was a bad program. But we're available on Apple Podcasts, and we are available on Stitcher, on Spotify, Overcast. Pick up our RSS link over on Anchor and put it into whatever your podcatching system is. We are pretty much everywhere now, I think. So next week.
What are we watching?
I think were we going to watch Whoops Apocalypse?
Oh, okay, yeah, sure.
So yeah, next week, we will be watching the British comedy Whoops Apocalypse.
Peter Cook.
That's right. It's a Peter Cook movie. Yeah. So this is a movie Dennis likes, and you've seen, right?
I've seen. It's been a long time though. So. But
I did recently see a scene on, like, somebody put a clip up on Twitter that I saw. I saw this one clip and it looked really funny. So yeah, we're gonna watch Whoops Apocalypse because things feel kind of apocalyptic these days.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no, it's very topical. Like for the past 5 years, this movie's.
Felt right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So, until next time.
I got a thing about chickens.